Have you ever duplicated a node in Godot and noticed strange behaviors when changing values on the new clone? Almost as if the new node is quantum entangled with the original? Here's what's probably going on. First, the important concept to know is that even though nodes and resources are related, they serve different purposes. Nodes contain functionality and logic, such as managing features like drawing in 2D and 3D, playing audio, and applying physics, whereas resources contain raw data, most of the time in a well-structured format based on a resource type, and are meant to be loaded directly from disk. Both nodes and resources can have additional properties as well, including other sub-resources. When the Godot engine loads a data resource from disk, it only loads it once. If a version of that resource is already loaded, then the resource will return the existing copy each time. As resources only contain a snapshot of data, there's no need to duplicate it in memory. When you duplicate a node in your game tree, all properties of the node are copied to the new instance. Values like the x and y position of the node can then be changed on each of the nodes. But its resources, because they are passed by reference, are shared between the two nodes. If you modify the resource used by the first object, you'll see the same change on the resource in the second object, because they share the same resource path pointer. In this example, we're showing how this problem could happen to you when using the collision shape node and the shape resource. It's also common to encounter this with other resources such as textures, materials, fonts, and other stylings. Notice how when we change the rectangle shape on the original node, the shape also changes on the second node. This problem can be a little bit more complex when you create multiple duplicates of a node containing resource pointers. In this example, we can have some resources point to a shared location, while others are unique. You can see how this impacts the shapes when we change the rectangles. Make unique ensures that the selected resource exists as a unique data store in your game. It's no longer entangled with the original instance, and modifying it will not affect the other objects. Now that the resource is made unique, we can change the rectangle without impacting the other node's shape. Hopefully that helps you visualize what's going on. And here's how you can check what a resource is actually pointing to. You can check the path property on your resources in the editor. It tells us where the resource comes from, and will help you identify if the resource is unique or may be shared by other parts of the game. There are two ways these resources are stored on disk. External resources are saved outside of the node that uses them. Built-in resources are stored along with the scene that they belong to. One example of an external resource would be the texture file that's assigned to a sprite node. These usually aren't affected by the shared resource problem unless you're changing the data directly in code. One example of a built-in resource is the shape on the collision node like the one in this video. In our collision shape example, the resource doesn't exist as a standalone file, but rather it's stored directly in the scene file. It's common to see the shared resource duplication problem with these types of resources. One last comment. I think it's generally best to leave the shared resources and not make things unique unless you absolutely need to. It's much more efficient to load things once. But with that said, unless you're trying to push the upper boundaries of what Godot can do, I doubt it would affect your projects. Just something to keep in mind if you see your nodes and some spooky action at a distance. Thanks for watching, and happy game developing.